Many wrestlers have fallen in and out of the good graces of WWE over the years, particularly during the 40 years Vincent K. McMahon ran the company. McMahon, who is a big personality in his own right, was not beneath having public issues with some talent for reasons both justified and unjustified. However, McMahon was never one to let a personal issue get in the way of making a sound business decision. Such thinking paved the way for polarizing wrestlers such as Hulk Hogan to return to the company on multiple occasions and laid the foundation for many wrestlers once exiled, such as Bret Hart, to return to WWE programming. Not every previously exiled wrestler was able to work their way back into the company's good graces. However, many men and women who have walked through the doors of the largest wrestling company in the world walked out of the doors as persona non grata and were never able to repair the burned bridge due to one of several reasons. I'm DeMott from WBPTV, and here are 9 former WWE superstars who will probably never work for the company again. Before we start, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell for weekly uploads. Now, without further ado, let's cue that intro.
Just ain't me. I'm a visionary, revolutionary. I'm a visionary, revolutionary. Fuck all that talking, my nigga, let's link. Bring your bitch ass up the street. I'm through with the talking, I'm done with the beef.
Shane Douglas went on to earn the franchise moniker in ECW and became one of the greatest heels in the history of the Philadelphia-based wrestling promotion. However, Douglas also accrued experience working in larger companies such as WCW and WWE. After gaining some buzz for his rejection of the NWA World Championship at an August 27, 1994 tournament for the coveted title, Douglas heated up in ECW and earned himself a second stint in the WWF as a result. Douglas made his WWF return as Dean Douglas, a Dean character with roots in academia. During his time as Dean Douglas, Shane Douglas made enemies with the Clique, a backstage collation made up of current WWE Senior Vice President Shawn Michaels and Chief Content Officer Triple H, among others. Though what happened between Douglas and the Clique depends on whose version of the story is to be believed. According to Douglas, Michaels had a personal issue with him. He had run his mouth when I was in Germany in the dressing room 3 weeks prior, saying he was going to embarrass me on national television, Douglas told BeneathTheMat.com's Brian Socia. I said to Davey Boy Smith, rest his soul, one of my best friends in the business, who was a great ribber and loved to stir the pot, that if he tries to embarrass me on national TV, that I'll stretch his rear end. Clique member Kevin Nash, meanwhile, mentioned on his podcast, Click This, that Douglas' issues with the group were one-sided and he doesn't have a problem with the former Dean Douglas. There was a brief time when Buff Bagwell, a WCW mainstay for more than a decade, figured heavily into WWF's invasion angle plans. Initial plans called for the company to have WCW matches on WWF programming. After the WWF seized control of WCW's assets and library, Bagwell was one of the first wrestlers to accept the buyout on his AOL Time Warner contract and become a member of the WWF roster. His time with the company would be brief, though he did appear in the first ever WCW match to be held on WWF television, one that would forecast the demise of the invasion angle. Bagwell made his WWF televised debut on the July 2nd, 2001 episode of Raw is War, fellow WCW named wrestler Booker T for the WCW Championship. The match bombed, with Bagwell made to be the scapegoat for the negative reception. Match-ending interference from Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle served as a further precursor for the programming to come. The WWF released Bagwell from his contract 1 week removed from his match with Booker T. Rumors swirled about Bagwell's backstage attitude. Stories made public included a backstage fight with Shane Helms and an apparent injury he sustained at the hands of Bradshaw at the subsequent SmackDown tapings. Another rumor claimed his mother, Judy, phoned the office to request that her son get time off from house shows. Bagwell has disputed the rumor and to this day claims he was never made privy to why the company released him from his contract, though he places the blame on former executive Jim Ross. He has not appeared on WWE programming since. Today, Bagwell is living in Diamond Dallas Page's accountability crib as he looks to get his life back in order after years of alcohol abuse. Tessa Blanchard became one of the most polarizing figures in women's wrestling in 2019. The daughter of Four Horsemen member Tully Blanchard and granddaughter of AWA wrestler Joe Blanchard had a fast rise as one of the most talented women's wrestlers in the world, winning both the Impact Knockouts World Championship and Impact World Championship within the span of a year, the latter of which is a belt traditionally reserved for male competitors. From there, Blanchard's stock dropped dramatically after she was accused of making racist comments as well as bullying by several of her colleagues. The accusations, both plentiful in nature and deep in context, combined with Blanchard's refusal to film vignettes for the company during the COVID-19 pandemic, caused the promotion to terminate her contract and strip her of the World Championship. With Blanchard without a contract and free to sign anywhere, she seemingly had an inroad into both AEW and WWE. Blanchard has to both of the top North American companies, having worked the All In pay-per-view that served as the precursor to AEW, as well as the inaugural Mae Young Classic hosted by WWE. However, Blanchard did not sign with either company and instead landed with the much smaller WOW Women of Wrestling promotion. According to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the WWE initially lacked interest in signing Blanchard to a full-time deal after the Mae Young Classic due to reported attitude issues stemming from her time in the tournament. Blanchard is once again a free agent, stemming from a falling out she had with WOW prior to the start of the show's latest season. The stories of Nail's interaction with Vince McMahon that led to his WWE departure is one many wrestling fans are familiar with. Kevin Wacos, the man behind Nail's, played a menacing ex-con brought in specifically to feud with Big Boss Man. Nail's seemed like a good fit on paper as an adversary for the Boss Man and was even teased as a future opponent for The Undertaker in late 1992. A photo of a stare down between Nail's and The Undertaker was used in January 1993 edition of WWF Magazine, which hit shelves 1 month after the confrontation between Nail's and McMahon. The incident occurred on December 14, 1992, when Nail's put his hands around the neck of McMahon after an argument over finances. By the time the agents intervened, Nail's left the premises with his hands up, then summoned the police, claiming McMahon attempted to arrest him. Once the police officers got the full story, Nail's was charged on the spot and became persona non grata in the years to come. Later, Nail's put the final nail in the coffin of his WWE career when he testified against the company in the 1994 steroid trial. Armed with one of the most unique gimmicks of his time, Mr. Kennedy, who was also known as his real name of Ken Anderson, quickly rose to the upper mid-card of WWE in the mid-2000s. With such a significant push comes undeniable backstage baggage and jealousy. As a result, Kennedy made an enemy out of Randy Orton, another young star who fit the profile for what the company wanted their main event wrestlers to be. Triple H, a confidant of Orton's, was also supposedly a skeptic of Kennedy as a main event talent. While working as Mr. Anderson in TNA, Kennedy made a reference in a promo to Triple H getting in the boss's ear about killing his push. Kennedy and Orton crossed paths briefly on SmackDown, but their most infamous interaction came shortly after Kennedy made his return to Raw in 2009. Kennedy spoke of his final day in WWE in an August 2009 interview with Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN Radio and alleged that Orton's grievances with him led to his eventual firing. During a 10-man tag team match that took place on the night he returned to Raw, Kennedy allegedly dropped Orton on his head on the heels of a backdrop. Orton gave his side of the story to the now defunct Randy Orton message board, alleging that Kennedy never apologized and even called him a liar after the match. When many people think of Ken Shamrock, they likely think of the former UFC champion as an MMA fighter before a pro wrestler. However, Shamrock's brief run in the WWF between 1997 and 1999 did wonders for his visibility and even led to him becoming the first NWA World Heavyweight Champion under the TNA banner. Shamrock accrued a heap of momentum in the WWF during one of the hottest periods in the company history. However, Ken Anderson is not the only Ken to find himself on the outs with WWE in modern times, as Shamrock has not returned to the company in any capacity since his 1999 departure. In an interview with Chris Van Vliet, Shamrock chalked his departure up to burnout from the WWF's hectic travel schedule. He's also mentioned a lack of synchronicity between the creative team and himself, as both parties had two different visions for what the world's most dangerous man could become. Shamrock also told Kurt Angle on an episode of The Kurt Angle Show that his trust in the company began to wane after the Montreal Screwjob and waned further after Owen Hart's tragic fall at Over the Edge in 1999. However, Shamrock has long been open to a WWE return and openly questions why the company has not contacted him for a return. That said, he also spoke of a potential issue with Triple H in a 2014 interview with MMA News, mentioning a dispute the two had over a ribbing incident as well as Triple H's apprehension towards putting him over. Bill DeMott, a former WWE and WCW wrestler who became the head trainer of the WWE developmental system between 2012 and 2015, will probably never work for the company again after allegations of misconduct and bullying became public knowledge. DeMott first came into his own as a trainer when he signed on to work for Deep South Wrestling, one of two WWE developmental territories at the time. DeMott soon became the head trainer at DSW, but left the company in 2007, only to return in 2011 to replace Dr. Tom Pritchard as the head trainer for Florida Championship Wrestling, which later became NXT. 4 years into his tenure, numerous stories from wrestlers willing to attach their names to their allegations came forward, with stories that painted DeMott as someone who fostered a toxic workplace culture as the head trainer for WWE developmental talent. Some of the stories that came about the culture under DeMott included a willingness to let wrestlers train naked, as well as physically assaulting and bullying trainees. In spite of the overwhelming quantity of allegations against DeMott and his methods over the years, WWE never actually fired DeMott. Instead, the embattled trainer resigned from his role to avoid any embarrassment or damage to the WWE. Matt Bloom, formerly known as A-Train, and Lord Tensai replaced DeMott as head trainer, a role he has held for more than 7 years. As for DeMott, his lack of popularity amongst his trainees spelled an end to his training career. He also had zero involvement in wrestling since his WWE departure. Getting released by the WWE was the best thing that ever happened to Colt Cabana. After reaching the WWE in 2007 and debuting as Scott Goldman, Cabana found himself on the outs with the company and received his release on February 20th, 2009. From there, Cabana laid the blueprint for what independent wrestlers need to do to have a profitable freelance career. He started his podcast, The Art of Wrestling, in which he interviewed colleagues and friends also involved in wrestling. The podcast grew rapidly and became a platform for Cabana and others to speak their mind openly and freely. Cabana briefly flirted with the idea of a return to WWE after his friend CM Punk rose to prominence in the company, but nothing ever came to fruition. Much like Raven, Cabana soon found himself in the WWE's legal crosshairs after CM Punk made bold accusations about the company, and more specifically, Dr. Chris Amann, over 2 episodes of The Art of Wrestling. Amann and the WWE named both Punk and Cabana in a lawsuit, and together the two Chicagoans successfully defended themselves, but at a cost. A financial dispute over legal fees put an end to Punk and Cabana's friendship. Now in his 40s, Cabana has no reason to seek out a WWE reunion at this point, and given the damage done both inside and outside the courtroom, both sides seem content to be done with one another. Tammy Sytch, also known as Sunny during her time in the WWF, may be a member of the WWE Hall of Fame, but has done just about everything in her power since her induction to fall out with the company. Her unsavory and criminal behavior outside of wrestling have even led to some calling for her removal from the Hall of Fame. Since her 2011 induction, Sytch has built one of the most infamous criminal rap sheets in wrestling. It began in 2012 when she was arrested 5 times in a 4-week span for disorderly conduct, 3rd-degree burglary, and 3 counts of violating a protection order. Sytch violated her parole less than 2 years later, then would be arrested twice in early 2018 for separate DUIs in New Jersey. Her 2018 DUI also came with a charge for fleeing the scene of an accident. From there, Sytch's legal troubles persisted. She was arrested in 2020 for allegedly eluding a police officer, contempt, violation of a domestic violence restraining order, and operating a motor vehicle during a second license suspension, then again in 2022 for unlawfully possessing a weapon and making terroristic threats to a romantic partner, allegedly threatening to murder them with a pair of scissors. Sytch's most recent and most significant arrest in March 2022 stemmed from her involvement in a fatal car wreck that killed a 75-year-old man in Volusia County, Florida. Toxicology reports found that her blood alcohol content was about 3.5 times the legal limit and could face up to 26 years in prison if convicted on the maximum charges. As a danger to herself and those around her, it is safe to say that it's unlikely that the first diva in WWE history will ever be seen on company programming again. Do you agree with our list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell for weekly uploads. Once again, I'm KB DeMott, signing off. Until the next one. I started with nothing and came out a king. I've been the one that's been ballin' for rings. It's been me and my team and we chasing the green. My team be the shit, we ain't ballin' for free. My team be the shit, we ain't ballin' for free.